All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're taking a close look at IHG Hotels and Resorts 2024 annual report. You know, the company behind big names like Holiday Inn and Intercontinental.
Yep, and a whole lot more. We're talking about a global player in the hospitality industry. They've got 19 different brands and over 6,600 hotels open in over 100 countries.
Wow, that's a huge footprint. And they're still expanding, right? They got a ton of hotels in development.
Oh, yeah, their pipeline is packed. Over 2,200 hotels are in the works. So what's fueling this growth? Well, for one, they're reaching every corner of the globe. I mean, just in 2024, they opened a whopping 371 new hotels.
That's incredible. But they're not just building more of the same, right? They're
Yeah,
diversifying their brand portfolio.
exactly. They're trying to capture a wider range of travelers. Like, look at their move into the luxury and lifestyle segment, adding brands like Six Senses, Regent, and Vignette Collection. That's a pretty big shakeup.
It is. It shows they're paying attention to the growing demand for those unique, high-end experiences. People want more than just a place to sleep these days.
Right. It's about the whole experience. It's about creating something special.
And speaking of creating something special, let's talk about their loyalty program, IHG One Rewards. Millions of members and all those exclusive partnerships with things like the US Open and Six Nations Rugby. They're really going all in to keep guests coming back for more.
Oh, for sure. Loyalty programs are a huge deal in this industry. It's a competitive landscape, and IHG is playing the game strategically. They get it personalized perks, exclusive access, a smooth digital experience. These things are crucial if you want to win in this space.
Yeah, it's not just about racking up points anymore. It's about making people feel like VIPs. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the numbers. The annual report is full of talk about excellent performance in 2024, but what does excellent actually look like? What are we talking about here?
Well, the first thing to look at is RevPay, revenue per available room. It's kind of the gold standard for measuring how well a hotel is doing. And globally, IHG saw a 3% increase in RevPay in 2024.
So people are traveling again and they're willing to pay a bit more for a room. That's got to be good news for IHG. But how much of that actually goes into IHG's pockets?
Now, this is where their asset-light business model comes in. Instead of owning most of the properties, IHG focuses on franchising and managing them.
So they get those management fees without the hassle of owning all that real estate.
Exactly. It's a smart way to grow revenue without a huge increase in operating expenses. And that means impressive operating profit and margin growth.
Ah, the beauty of leveraging other people's assets. But what about those investors? They want to see that cash coming back to them.
Oh, IHG has a plan for that cash. There are three main things they do with it. First, they reinvest in future growth. It's like planting seeds, right?
Mm.
They put money into developing new brands, upgrading technology platforms, and expanding into new markets.
So they're always looking ahead, preparing for future revenue. Makes sense. What about the second thing?
Second, they reward their shareholders. Dividends and share buybacks. Actually, they just approved a massive $900 million share buyback program back in February 2025.
That's a lot of money going back to investors. Got to keep them happy. And the third thing, what's the third prong of this cash strategy?
The third part is about maintaining a strong financial structure. Any extra cash. That goes towards making sure their balance sheet is healthy. This allows for future investments and creates more shareholder value down the road. It's about long-term stability.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got global reach, a diverse portfolio of brands, happy guests thanks to that loyalty program, and a financially sound approach. But let's zoom in a bit. How are those individual business segments actually performing? What's driving that growth?
Well, let's start with those 371 new hotels they opened. That's a big chunk of growth right there, expanding their presence all over the world, and they're being strategic about it, targeting different market segments with the right kind of brands.
So it's not just...
Exactly. Take their push into the luxury and lifestyle segment, adding those high-end brands. That's a direct response to the way travel is changing. People want those unique, curated experiences, and IHG is capitalizing on that.
And those loyal customers are a big part of the equation, too.
Yeah.
IHG One Rewards is playing a huge role in driving repeat business and attracting new guests.
Oh, absolutely. In a world overflowing with travel options, loyalty programs are becoming essential. It's how you stand out and build a dedicated customer base. IHG gets this, and they're putting a lot of effort into making their program top-notch.
You bet. Those partnerships, personalized perks, that seamless digital experience,
Yeah.
it's all about creating happy guests who keep coming back for more.
Exactly. Now let's dig a little deeper into those financials. We touched on the asset-light model, but let's look at some of the key figures from their financial statements. Starting with the income statement across their whole system, their total gross revenue increased by 5.7% in 2024. That comes out to a massive $33.4 billion. dollars.
Wow, that's a lot of hotel stays.
Yeah.
So what's driving that revenue growth? Is it just the travel market bouncing back?
It's a few things, actually. Yeah, the travel market is definitely stronger. People are traveling more, spending more. But IHG's strategic expansion is playing a role too. Those new hotels are bringing in serious revenue. And their focus on higher-end brands, well, that means higher average room rates.
So a combination of a good market and smart moves on IHG's part. But revenue is only part of the story, right? We need to talk about profitability. What's their operating profit looking like?
Okay, so this is where things get a little interesting. Their reported operating profit from their reportable segments. That was $1.041 billion in 2024, and that's actually a decrease of 2.3% compared to the previous year.
Wait, a decrease?
Mhm.
When we were just talking about all this revenue growth.
I know, right? It seems counterintuitive. But remember their asset-light model. A big chunk of their revenue is from fees for franchising and managing hotels. And that revenue stream, it's categorized separately from the operating profit generated by their owned and leased properties.
Ah, okay. So we need to look at those different revenue streams separately to get the full picture.
You got it. When we factor in their system fund, which manages funds from hotel owners for things like marketing and reservations, their total operating profit actually jumps up to $1.124 billion.
All right, so the profit picture is looking a bit rosier when we consider all their income sources.
It is. It's important to look beyond just the top-level numbers and really understand how their business model works.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about their financial health overall? What does their balance sheet tell us?
Well, their balance sheet gives us a good look at their assets, liabilities, and their financial stability. One key thing to focus on is their net debt. Basically, that's the difference between their total debt and their cash on hand. As of December 31st, 2024, their net debt was $2.1 billion.
Okay, but is that a lot? How do we know if that's good or bad?
It's all relative, right? We need to look at their net debt in relation to their earnings. IHG aims to keep their net debt to adjusted EBITDA ratio within a certain range.
Hold on. Let's break that down for our listeners. EBITDA, what is that? And why is this ratio so important?
So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it's a way to measure profitability that gives us a clearer picture of how much cash they're generating from their actual operations.
So it's about the cash they're bringing in before taking into account those non-cash expenses.
Exactly. IHG wants to keep their net debt to adjusted EBITDA ratio between 2.5 and 3.0 times. Basically, they want to strike a balance between using debt to fuel their growth and making sure they have a manageable amount of debt compared to their earnings.
So it's like a balancing act, using debt strategically, but not getting in over their heads.
Right. Now, let's shift gears and talk about cash flow. This is super important because it shows us how much cash they're actually generating from their business.
Yeah, it's one thing to have revenue on paper. It's another to have cash coming in the door. So what does their cash flow statement reveal?
Well, their cash from operations, which is basically the cash they're making from their core hotel business, reached $1.1 billion in 2024.
Okay, that's pretty healthy. But we also need to factor in their capital expenditures, right? All the investments they're making to maintain and grow the business.
Absolutely. Their gross capital expenditure, which includes what they're investing through their system fund, was $350 million in 2024.
So they're putting a good amount of money back into the business.
Yeah.
But how much cash is actually left over after covering those essential investments?
That's where free cash flow comes in. If we subtract their capital expenditures from their cash from operations, we get their free cash flow, which was $804 million in 2024.
Wow, that's a nice cushion. So what do they do with all that free cash flow?
Well, they've got options. They can use it for things like dividends, share buybacks, strategic acquisitions, or simply keep it on hand for future investments. It gives them a lot of flexibility.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered their income statement, their balance sheet, and their cash flow statement. What's the overall takeaway from all this financial data?
The big picture. IHG is a financially solid company. They've got a track record of generating strong revenue and cash flow. They're investing strategically to fuel future growth, and they're rewarding shareholders through dividends and buybacks.
Sounds like they're in a good spot. But let's be real, no business is without its challenges.
You're absolutely right. And there are definitely some headwinds IHG is facing. Let's explore those as we dig a little deeper into their annual report.
All right, let's do it. Let's see what challenges are looming on the horizon. All right, so we've talked about how IHG is in a pretty good spot financially, but, what about the road ahead? What are some of the bumps they might hit?
Well, first off, they've got something every hotel company deals with: competition. I mean, there are a lot of big players out there all trying to attract the same travelers.
It's a battle for those guests looking for a good place to stay and a good experience, right? But IHG does have some things working in their favor, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. Their wide range of brands means they can cater to pretty much everyone, from budget-conscious travelers to those looking for luxury. And their IHG One Rewards program, that's a powerful tool for building customer loyalty.
Definitely. Those perks and personalized experiences can make a big difference when you've got so many choices.
Hmm.
But competition isn't the only thing on their plate, right?
Nope, not at all.
Hmm.
Technology is changing the whole game in the hospitality industry. Cloud-based systems are becoming the standard. People want self-service options like mobile check-in and digital room keys, and AI is being used to personalize the entire guest experience.
It's all about creating that seamless, tech-savvy experience that people have come to expect. But that comes with a whole new set of worries, right?
Exactly. Cybersecurity and data protection. Those are at the top of the list for any hotel company now. The more guest data they collect, the bigger the target they become for hackers and data breaches.
So they've got to walk a fine line, using technology to improve things for the guests, but also keeping that information safe. What else is coming down the pike for IHG?
Well, sustainability is a big one. Travelers and investors, they're paying more attention to it than ever. People want to support companies that are doing things the right way, environmentally and socially responsible.
It's not just about profits anymore. It's about doing good. And IHG seems to be catching on with their Journey to Tomorrow initiative.
Right. Their commitment to reducing their carbon footprint, promoting diversity and inclusion, and working with local communities, it's becoming crucial for building trust with both guests and investors.
So just to recap, IHG is dealing with some intense competition, a super fast-paced technology landscape, and the growing demand for sustainability. Sounds like a lot to handle, but let's get practical here. What are some specific strategies they're using to not just survive, but really thrive in this environment?
Well, number one, they're all about those guest experiences. I mean, it's not enough to just offer a clean room anymore. They're trying to go above and beyond, create those moments that people remember and that turn them into loyal customers.
So it's about creating those personalized wow factor experiences.
Exactly. They're using data to personalize interactions, beefing up that loyalty program, and constantly working to raise service standards across all their brands.
Okay, so happy guests are the top priority. What else is in their playbook?
Operational efficiency is huge. In a market like this, with all that competition and rising costs, streamlining things and maximizing profits, that's crucial if you want to stay ahead of the game.
So basically working smarter, not harder. How are they doing that?
Well, they're investing in technology to make things run smoothly, automating tasks, reducing waste, all that good stuff. They're also using data analytics to make better decisions about things like pricing, managing inventory, and how they allocate resources.
So technology is key for both happy guests and a smooth operation.
Hmm.
But what about their employees? We talked about the difficulty of finding and keeping good people. How are they dealing with that?
They realize their people are the most valuable asset. So they're investing in training programs to give their employees the skills they need and to create a culture where people are always learning. And they're focused on creating a positive work environment, one that's supportive and inclusive so they can attract and keep top talent.
So it's about creating a workplace where people feel valued and encouraged to grow. Makes sense. And we can't forget about their commitment to being a responsible business.
Right. It's not just talk. Their Journey to Tomorrow initiative is leading to real changes. They're taking concrete steps to lessen their impact on the environment, be socially responsible, and improve their governance practices.
They're walking the walk. So let's sum it up. IHG's strategic priorities. It seems like they're focused on delivering great guest experiences, making their operations as efficient as possible, investing in their workforce, and being a responsible company. Sounds like a solid plan for dealing with what's ahead.
It is. But you have to remember, the hospitality industry is constantly in motion. IHG needs to be flexible, ready to adapt and change with the times.
So what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. They've got to be able to shift gears, innovate, and keep evolving to meet those ever-changing demands.
Exactly. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's step back and think about the big picture for IHG. What are the key things that will determine whether they succeed or fail in the years to come?
Well, to me, one thing that's going to be crucial is how they stand out from the crowd. There are so many hotels out there. How will IHG grab people's attention and make them choose their brands?
That's the big question, right? Their success is going to depend on their ability to tell compelling stories about their brands, offer unique experiences, and really understand what today's travelers are looking for. And they've got to use data effectively to personalize those offerings and create those memorable moments that build loyalty.
So differentiation is key. What else should we be watching for?
How well they adapt to all this new technology is going to be crucial. We've already talked about cloud-based systems, self-service options, and AI-powered personalization. IHG needs to embrace those while also being mindful of the cybersecurity and data privacy risks.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tightrope walk, embracing the good while managing the risks.
Yeah.
Anything else on your radar?
Their commitment to sustainability, that's going to become even more important. As travelers become more conscious of their impact, they'll look for brands that align with their values.
So IHG's Journey to Tomorrow initiative isn't just a marketing gimmick. It's essential for attracting those eco-conscious guests and investors.
Exactly. And lastly, but definitely not least, their success is going to come down to their people. In an industry like hospitality, where it's all about service, being able to attract, retain, and empower talented people is everything. That's how you create those exceptional experiences.
It all boils down to creating a work environment where employees feel valued and inspired to go the extra mile. That's what's going to set IHG apart and drive their success in the long run.
You nailed it. Now, let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll pull all these insights together and offer some closing thoughts on IHG's journey ahead.
All right, so we've been through a lot with IHG. Their massive operations, their financials, and even those challenges they might face down the road.
Right. Now it's time to put all the pieces together. What does the future hold for IHG? What's your expert take?
Yeah, no pressure or anything, but where do you see things going?
Well, I can't predict the future, obviously, but I can say that IHG is in a pretty solid position. I mean, they're a global force with a whole bunch of brands that appeal to different types of travelers, and they're making smart investments in technology to improve the guest experience.
And don't forget that IHG One Rewards program, that's a big plus, especially with those partnerships that give members access to those unique experiences. You can't get those just anywhere.
Totally. And their financials are strong. They're generating a lot of cash, which gives them the freedom to invest in future growth, pay dividends to shareholders, and even buy back shares. Those are all good signs for investors.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, is it? We talked about some pretty big challenges facing the entire industry.
True, the competition is tough, labor costs are going up, and the threat of cyber attacks is always there. And then there's the question of how they'll hit those ambitious sustainability goals while still expanding their global reach.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. But it sounds like they're being proactive about addressing those challenges.
That's the important thing. They're not just sitting around waiting to see what happens. They're actively investing in their employees, making their operations more efficient, and embracing technology to stay ahead of the curve.
So final verdict, what's the future looking like for IHG?
I think they're well positioned for continued success. They've got a solid foundation and a clear vision for the future, but how successful they'll be really depends on how well they execute those strategies, how quickly they adapt to the changing market, and how well they navigate all the complexities of a world that's constantly in flux.
It's not enough to have a plan. You got to be able to adjust that plan when things change.
Exactly. IHG is going to have to be agile, innovative, and always focused on the customer if they want to thrive in this environment. But from what we've seen, I think they've got the leadership, the resources, and the vision to pull it off.
So a bright future for IHG, but one that requires them to stay focused and adaptable.
You got it. As we wrap up our deep dive into IHG, I want to leave you with this thought. We've talked a lot about technology and its impact on the industry, but let's not forget that at its heart, hospitality is about people. It's about making connections, creating memories, and providing a sense of comfort and belonging for travelers from all over.
So as IHG continues to grow and innovate, they can't lose sight of that human element. That's the heart and soul of hospitality.
Absolutely. That human touch is what truly sets them apart and creates lasting value for their guests, employees, and investors.
And on that note, it's time to check out this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored IHG Hotels and Resorts. We hope you learned some interesting things about this global hospitality giant and the forces shaping the future of the industry.